It's been a week since Meghan Markle's show With Love Meghan came out, and reviews are in. Media has come out and shared their thoughts on the show and wanted to get your thoughts also. Is this show a PR nightmare? Hi everyone, Alexandra here, and I'm a visibility strategist, communications expert, was a publicist for many years, and I've been covering stories that come out in the media about celebrities and public figures, and a lot of times sharing the do's and don'ts, learning lessons, branding, publicity, wins and fails, and what we can learn from it. And this show, to be fair, I came in with kind of neutralized because I didn't really or hadn't really been following Meghan Markle and Harry and their story. I actually found out about the show because of the wildfires, because the show was originally going to air on January 15th and was postponed, according to Meghan, was because of the wildfires. And they didn't want to, I don't know, inflict any additional emotional distress on people by sharing this lighthearted, feel good entertainment show. Anyways, it ended up airing on March 4th. And I believe that part of the behind the scenes on that is that they were still getting their act together with the brand that they're creating. There were some trademark issues with the brand name. And finally, they ended up launching a site. It's called As Ever, is the name of the brand. And so a lot of, issues there with some of this other parallel stuff going on. And actually last week when I reviewed the show without even reading any of the media coverage or social media coverage, I just watched the show and gave my honest view. I thought I would have given it a 5 out of 10 stars. The cinematography is beautiful, scenery is beautiful, production is beautiful and well done, but the content is boring. There's no tea, right? And this is someone who is known as, and she was known originally as being an actress, and now she became really famous by being associated with the royals, right? And so just in that first episode, I thought it was, subpar as far as the actual content. Like nothing that she was doing in there was really super interesting. And the guest, it was her makeup artist for many years. I would have thought that like maybe they would have definitely spilled more of the tea, right? Given some more behind the scenes, and really is nothing. And I'm seeing reviews from people from have watched more of the shows or more of the episodes and not much more interesting, right? So even back then, when I first did a week ago, there was about 1,000 reviews and it was still about 2.8 stars. Now, the one difference when you look at that's a weighted review and or a weighted score, and when you take the unweighted scale, meaning it doesn't give weight to to the low or to the high, doesn't weight that according to the ranking, you get a 4.5 unweighted mean, which is what I would have probably given it around a 5, right? The thing is that, in my opinion, these 10s are going to be, because it's really not super, I mean, it's very light entertainment, I wouldn't even call it entertainment. It's very light viewing. And a lot of these 10s are going to be super fans, right? So many of these super fans are going to give Meghan Markle a 10 no matter what she creates. And then these ones are also, they're the opposite. They're the super haters. And most of these people are going to give her a 1 regardless of what she creates. Even if she creates something spectacular, they're going to give her a 1 because a lot of, within personal branding, a lot of you comes out in your brand. And so even though, I think that the score should have been closer to around a 5, which actually has 4 happens to be the least number, followed by 5 and 6. And so even though I think the number is it's probably close to this, what this unweighted mean is, probably in this mid-range, people that just don't like Meghan Markle are going to give her a 1, even if they think that the show was okay, was decent, maybe even give it a 3, but they're going to still give it a 1 just because of who Meghan Markle is. And then when you look at Rotten Tomatoes, that's another one that I So let's see what Rotten Tomatoes gives it. So Rotten Tomatoes, keep in mind that the score, the tomato meter is from a list of critics. So these are people who they do this for a living, is they critique shows and movies. And they gave a 36%. So if you could look at that, a 3.6 out of 10. And then the average popcorn meter is like the general audience. And they gave it a 20% or a 2 out of 10. And so definitely the general viewing audience is giving it a lower score. But again, this is probably, again, closer. The critique is probably closer, but at the same time, the critics are not necessarily the ideal audience. So you have to weigh that, this is probably closer to the production, the value of the show itself. This is definitely skewed. The 20% is definitely skewed toward a lot of haters commenting and scoring it. And so the other issue here is that there is no clear audience, right? So the only people that I've seen, and I've done a lot of social media, overwhelmingly the media are giving it more negative, view, or giving a more negative review. I have some friends I belong to a group of PR professionals, and several of them have actually given it pretty good reviews. Now, the reviews are pretty much, they're not really saying it's super amazing quality programming. They're just saying it's light, it's easy entertainment, light and breezy. That really is, kind of like background filler type of thing. Like the recipes are nice, and it's just light and breezy entertainment, right? This is not quality content. They're not, at least that's not what the reviews are. They're just saying that they like it and that it's fine and it's, it's light and breezy. Those are the comments that are coming. Now, here's the thing. Again, from a PR perspective, this was really interesting. I saw this. Let's take a listen on this.
Oh, do you hear that?
All right, you get the idea. It says, "Oh, how I love ASMR. If you're loving," this is on Meghan's page on Instagram. "If you're loving season 1, just wait until you see the fun we cooked up on season 2. Thanks for joining the party, and an endless thanks to the amazing team and crew who helped bring it all to life. Netflix." So that is super interesting because this was announced. So it's 3 days ago. I believe this is on Friday the 7th. So the show came out on the 4th, and then a few days later, Meghan announced, and then Netflix also, that they had a season 2. Now, the thing is, this was so obvious that what actually ended up happening, and this is confirmed, what actually ended up happening is that they filmed season 2 along with season 1. So they didn't, it's not like, oh, we filmed season 1, it was a great success, and now we're filming season 2. No. They did it all together, which is very common in production. Economies of scale, right? You already have the place rented, you already have the ingredients, you already have, people lined up, you already have the production crew there. It would be way more costly to go ahead and do a second season at a year later or whatever it would be. So it makes sense that they went ahead and filmed season 2 from a cost standpoint. The thing is that it's just kind of interesting, the timing on this. Did they plan to announce that they had the season 2 coming out so soon? Right? I feel like they were getting such negative reviews that they just wanted to say, hey, we got another season coming up to make it look better, to make the season look better. And it is probably true that if it's doing well on Netflix, that it's partially due to curiosity. So maybe people watch, like, for example, so far I've only watched episode 1. I said I was going to watch more, and I haven't yet been able to watch more episodes. And now at this point, I'm not sure I'm going to watch more episodes, but there's definitely people, I saw it on my comments on my videos, people hate watching. And then also people like us who are just curious, content creators, media, critics who are watching to, for this purpose, to see what it is because of that curiosity factor. You've got the general public, the curiosity factor, and then you've got the hate watchers that are going to, no matter what she puts out, she could put the A+ content and people are still going to give negative reviews because they don't like Meghan. Right. And so I'd be curious to see when the rankings come out, when the true rankings come out, and see how it's doing. But I venture to say that probably there is a steep drop off after the first episode, because I had people in my comments even saying they couldn't make it through the first episode. And I thought it was okay. I didn't find anything particularly interesting, captivating or engaging to keep me going. But then there were things like the scenery was beautiful, and the production, like the actual way the scenes were shot, and the production value was good. And so again, light and breezy. But why am I watching this show? Right? I would not watch this show if not for Meghan attached to that name. Because if it was a random person creating the show, it wouldn't be, frankly, it wouldn't have a draw. And so I think that's part of the controversy, the criticism that she's getting. And I put this in my last video that I didn't think that there was really a, that branding wise for the content, there really wasn't a strong brand associated. Even the name With Love, Meghan is not really very interesting. It's kind of forgettable. And her brand itself, as ever, is pretty forgettable as well. When you're talking about branding, you want something that stands out, something that is aligned with what you're creating so that people can make associations. If you're going to do something completely so left field that doesn't mean anything, like the Googles and the Goops that mean nothing, you have no idea what that means, but somehow you still remember Goop. I still remember Goop. It took me several times saying and looking at the name With Meghan, With Love, Meghan, for me to remember that name. It's just it's hard to remember. And as ever as well, some people in my comments were saying as if, it's just not, they're not strong names. And so this is part of the criticism that we also have with Meghan Markle, or Meghan Sussex, or Duchess of Sussex. Here it says, this is an article in USA Today. It says Duchess Meghan, authenticity and why she just can't win with the new Netflix show. There's this thing about she wants to be authentic. She wants to be real, but she comes across really dry and stiff in her show. And, another reason, there was this controversy after she and Harry left the royal family. I don't know the particulars of that, so sorry if I get that wrong. But my understanding is that they stepped back from being the active members of the royal family, partially so that they could get their privacy. There was a lot of terrible racist comments, misogynistic comments, really gross commentary that could hurt anybody. Whatever you feel about Meghan is human, and it could hurt anybody. And so I understand kind of wanting to step back and maybe regroup a little bit and have some privacy. The thing is that since then, she's created documentaries. She now has this new Netflix show. She's got this brand that she's launching. And so there's this, I don't want to say hypocrisy. I'm not sure hypocrisy is the right word, but there's definitely a not consistency in what she's trying to say. So she wants privacy, but then she needs the media attention. She needs the public attention for her shows to be successful. She needs the attention for her business to thrive, right? And then let's not talk about her as an individual, her need for attention. I won't speak on that, but she needs that attention for her businesses and her brands to be successful, her business ventures to be successful, her deals to be successful. And so, again, and then when she is putting herself out there, she herself comes across not genuine, not authentic, not real. A good example of this also is the fact that she ended up renting a house that wasn't even her own. I in the other video that I posted, and I'll post a link on the comments. There is alleged that she copied Pamela Anderson's cooking show. Maybe not consciously, but there were a lot of elements that were taken, even including the name. Pamela Anderson's show is called Pamela's Cooking with Love, and Pamela's book is called Love, Pamela. So you take both of those names and you have With Love Meghan, Meghan, so it was just, to me, it was super weird. And, it was super weird that she would do that. On top of that, in the case of Pamela, what she did, she's cooking in her home. She's making it about vegan or plant-based food. And so it's different. It stands out. Even if you don't even if you're not plant-based or vegan or vegetarian, it has like another air to it that makes it interesting and different, because there's not a lot of celebrities sharing that plant-based food. So it gives another element to it that makes her stand out, which also aligns with Pamela's not wearing not wearing any makeup, really, not wearing any makeup, kind of going into that raw and realness of herself, and then creating food that's raw and vegan and plant-based. And so it all kind of works together for her and her brand. Meghan Markle does not have that. She doesn't really have a brand. I wrote in my last video, it's like that she has this identity crisis. She isn't consistent. She doesn't really stand out for anything. There was a Vanity Fair article that came out where they were talking about her podcast and how they haven't really been able to find a winning formula for her podcast. Again, because there's not a lot of interest. It's not really engaging. And so I had proposed in my first video that I made about this new series, calling it something like something about tea time, right? Tea time with Meghan, which would have actually been a really cute play on words, because it goes back to tea time as in like the British royal aspect, which she wants to be known as a Sussex. So it's not like she's abandoning her British connection here. And then also, of course, tea time, like the gossip. And then being able to cook food while also, and cooking and making tea and all the things, all her little concoctions, while talking about her past, talking about her family, her friends, spilling that tea, so to speak, right? And so that's what I thought would have been a lot better, use of this new media attention that she's getting. Okay, so let's read this article. It's from USA Today. It says, Meghan Markle, sorry, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, or she said to Mindy Kaling, Meghan Sussex is her name, is back in the spotlight with her new homemaking reality show With Love Meghan on Netflix. Many people, however, wish that she wasn't. The reviews have been brutal. The Independent called the show queasy and exhausting. Vulture said it pioneers new frontiers in unrelatability. The Times columnist Carol Midgley insisted the show actually exceeds expectations of terribleness. If you thought With Love Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex's new lifestyle show, would be a smug, syrupy endurance watch, and that you would rather fry your eyeballs than sit through it, I have news for you. It is so much worse than that. And here it says on Rotten Tomatoes, the show sits at a measly 33%. Now it's 36%, and then a 20% audience score. But not everyone hates With Love Meghan. Some ex-users seem to find it charming. Others appreciate its meme-worthy moments. Despite the poor reviews, Netflix has already announced plans for another season. Pop culture and psychology experts say there's a lot to unpack with the backlash. After all, Meghan's a polarizing public figure, and no matter what she does, people will have strong feelings about it, right? A lot of times, no matter what she puts her name behind, people will either, her true fans are going to love it, or at least give it the 10-star reviews. And her haters are going to hate it. They're going to give the 1-star reviews, no matter what she does. Even if she creates a 10-star, like a 5-star product, people will still give it a 1 star if they're your haters. We can be hypercritical, and we need to look at what is that doing to us when we feel such a high level of judgment of other people. Psychotherapist Stephanie Sarkis says, it seems that whatever Meghan does, she's going to be under a microscope. Right, it's true. Duchess Meghan and her authenticity problem. If you follow pop culture, odds are you have strong feelings about Meghan. Some love her, some hate her, some consider her an inspiring trailblazer, others a manipulator. Because of this, the reactions to the show aren't really about the show itself. This isn't about what she's doing, it's about her, which we've already talked about, and it's true. And the thing is, that's the issue. That is a major problem with celebrities, especially with brand endorsements, anything that a celebrity gets behind. There's an issue. And if you're interested in this, let me know in the comments. That the co-founder of Airbnb, Joe Gebbia, he is not working. He's no longer employed by the company, but he's still on the board. He actually is now part of Elon Musk's Doge committee, or whatever you call it. And that has received major negative backlash for Airbnb, even though Gebbia is not technically employed. He's not part of the company anymore. But he still sits on the board. And of course, he's a co-founder of the company. And so people's personal views, people's personal actions, a personal brand associated with a venture can affect it. And so people don't really know. Joe Gebbia is not really like super out there type of a person. But just the fact that Airbnb is a really well-known company, is a big company, that association was enough for people to want to come out and boycott Airbnb. All right. Oh, there's a good point here. It says, with love of Meghan, he says, suffers from the same image problem that's plagued Meghan and her husband since they stepped down in 2020, which is that they want to come off as authentic without actually letting their guards down. For instance, in With Love Meghan, the Duchess acts as hostess to the couple's famous friends, yet the show isn't even filmed at their Southern California home. It's filmed at a nearby rental property. She doesn't help herself. The fact that she's shooting an at-home entertaining lifestyle cooking show in a kitchen that isn't hers kitchen is a problem. The fact that they rented basically a set to do a show that's all about the authentic you is a problem, particularly if the visual is meant to give you her at home. And she does say that it's not her home, but still, it just doesn't, that's on top of the way she actually acts, which is pretty stiff. Not really, she just doesn't seem relatable, and she doesn't seem very likable, frankly. She seems fine. She doesn't seem like on the show, she's not a terrible person, but I wouldn't say she's boring, but the content is not super exciting. It is a little bit on the boring side, right? There's not a lot of engaging content. And you're talking about somebody who is not a cooking expert making cooking recipes, and somebody who is not an expert in bees talking about bees, and somebody who's not an expert on candle making talking about candles. And by the way, in that first episode, there were 3 instances that there was no like warning of what could happen. 3 instances where I was like nervous that, like, for example, when she was pouring, the friend was pouring the hot wax into the candles, like that hot boiling candle wax made me really nervous, right? The thing with the bees and not talking about like the proper protection, like especially if you're getting kids involved in all these things, there was just a lot of things that were super impractical and also kind of dangerous. But somebody who was an expert would have said those things, right? An expert in candle making holding very hot wax would have probably said, now be careful, this is really hot, you can burn yourself if you have little ones around, right? Somebody who teaches this is not something that Meghan teaches, and this is sort of a problem, right? Like this is not what she does for a living. And so fine, you want to show the things you're doing, but when you're showing this to millions of people, like this could be a problem. This problem has surfaced in other areas of the couple's life too. For instance, when the couple parted ways with the royal family, they said that they made the decision in the pursuit of privacy. Now, royal watchers are struggling to square how a Spotify podcast and a Netflix series fit into that goal of privacy. It doesn't help that when the couple does let their guard down, it comes off controlled and calculated. Well, that's another criticism that people have had with the show, that it seems very scripted. And there are some moments in there that make it seem like perhaps things were unscripted. Like in episode 1, when the friend cuts his finger, like within 3 minutes of filming. And sorry, I shouldn't laugh about that, because that did seem real and legit. But there were these little things that were peppered in to make it seem like this is for real, but also almost seemed too obvious that it would be left in. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyways, Meghan wanted this real at home feel, but yet wasn't really willing to give us that product, meaning she didn't do it in her home. This is a mistake she constantly makes. She lets us into her life, and then she pushes us out. So the last 2 or 3 years, she's been demanding privacy for her children, and suddenly now they're popping up on her social media account. So it feels to me as if Meghan, like a lot of people, wants it both ways. What the With Love Meghan hate says about us. This is interesting. In many ways, Meghan's conflicting public image strategy is to be expected after everything she's gone through. She's weathered racist attacks in the press, and she alleges from within the royal family too. She's shared that public scrutiny has driven her to contemplate unaliving herself, which is, to be fair, the vitriol that she has received is completely unwarranted. Nobody should ever be receive that type of terrible vitriol just because of the color of your skin, just because you're a woman. That misogynistic, that racist vitriol is awful and terrible. If you don't like her as a person, that's one thing, but her, just because of her color of her skin, or adding that as a jab, or because she's a woman, whatever, adding all those things as a jab is completely terrible, unwarranted, and nobody deserves that, no matter how much you don't like them. There's something very cautious about Meghan, and I get it. If I'd been through what she had been through and the amount of scrutiny and attention that she's received, you're going to be really careful about how you walk through life. Sarkis believes the criticism Meghan receives is largely overblown. After all, celebrities have done far worse things and put out a poorly reviewed lifestyle show, yet they don't seem to draw nearly as much backlash. Why are we showing so much scrutiny on something that's supposed to be a lifestyle show? Why is there so much vitriol toward her? It seems like we have a different standard for her than we do for other well-known people, but we have to really look at why. Ultimately, if you find that Meghan and her show have you particularly upset, it's an opportunity for reflection. What is it about this show that bothers you so much? I mean, at least I feel good in knowing that I'm giving it a 5. Like, there's areas I like and there's areas I dislike. I'm fairly neutral about it, and I don't dislike her as a person. I don't really know her. Odds are the answer has more to do with you than it does with her. And I agree. I think people who are just giving it the 1 stars just because you don't like her, anytime you give a 1 star because you don't like a person versus the product, you're doing a disservice, not just to the product, but to yourself as well, right? Why is this bothering me, and what can I do about it? Does this have to do with my own personal experiences? Does it have anything to do with how I feel? Does it have anything to do with maybe messages I've received throughout my life? Why do I possibly feel threatened by her doing well? What does this trigger in me? And what do I need to take a look at possibly healing? Oh, and that's the end of the article. So yeah, it's interesting, the idea that, when you're creating a brand, you want it to be, especially a brand identity, you want it to be authentic and real. Now, the thing with branding is that there is this idea that brand identity is what you aspire to. And so sometimes your brand image is over here, and your brand identity, what you aspire to, is over here. You want that to be as close as possible, you want how people perceive you to be what you aspire to. You want that to be as close as possible. Now, it's usually never going to be exactly, right? There's always going to be there's a little bit of aspiration, right? A little bit of improving yourself or making you closer to what you aspire to, this sense of moving towards something. But the thing with Meghan is that she is trying to create this real authenticness to her. And she's not executing well at all in that. The show, again, I would give it a 5 out of 10 stars. I think it's okay. Things I like about it, things I dislike about it. I probably would never watch the show if it was just an ordinary person, but also an ordinary person would probably never get that show because there isn't anything interesting about it, right? There isn't really anything particularly that makes the show stand out. There isn't any high level of expertise, right? Like I gave as an example the Home Edit on Netflix. Those ladies have this like proprietary system and they're experts in what they do. On top of that, what I liked about that show is that they give the behind the scenes tea. They work with these celebrities, and by going into those celebrities' homes or their areas, their families, their lives, they're giving some of that behind the scenes tea. On top of that, the show itself has the drama of having this time frame where they have to fix the home and do all these fixes and all that in a really short period of time. So that urgency, adds some drama there, right? So all of those areas, all of those things together give that show something interesting for people who are interested in that to watch. Now that show is not going to be for everyone. That's not necessarily a topic that men, although there are some home improvement type aspects to it, but it's not something that everyone is going to be drawn to necessarily, right? Again, you have to know your audience. And the issue here with Meghan is that she doesn't even know herself. She doesn't know her own brand identity. She doesn't really know where she wants to go. And therefore, she's not really she can't really connect to an audience that she doesn't really even know who the audience is. Because an audience of, if I had to guess, the audience would likely be middle class, aspirational, women, middle-aged women, homemakers, that type of thing. But at the same time, why would you watch that show for expert tips? Because there really aren't expert tips in there. And then again, there's not really the tea that you would expect from a show with a celebrity. So again, it's a light and breezy, just like the people in my PR group, light and breezy entertainment, kind of like background entertainment. That really seems to be the production value of this show. So again, is this show a PR nightmare, or do you think it was actually brilliant for Meghan Markle to be part of the show to help her sell her products with her new As Ever line? Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. If you learned something new today, I'd appreciate if you hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you do. I cover tips and strategies to grow your visibility, to discuss do's and don'ts, learning lessons with branding, visibility, publicity, covering topics and newsworthy issues and influencers like this. And with that, I wish you a blessed rest of your day, and bye for now.